Class 9th, in my previous video, I taught you the first chapter of the first poem of Treasure Trove, a collection of ICSE poems. Now, in this video, we will do the first chapter of Treasure Trove, a collection of ICSE short stories. Clear, children? And the first lesson of Treasure Trove from short story is Chief Seattle's speech. Okay, this is a very famous speech, okay, delivered by Chief Seattle. Okay, and this is really a very complicated and difficult speech also. Try to understand. Clear? It is a speech delivered in 1854 by Chief Seattle, who belonged to Squamish tribe. Squamish tribe. S-U, I'm spelling. Okay, and just see the spelling. Suquamish. Okay, Squamish tribe. He delivered this speech at Washington, and in it he told about the path of accommodation to white settlers in U.S. state of Washington. His speech contained argument in favor of ecological responsibility and respect of Native Americans' land rights. Two important things. See, favor of ecological responsibility and respect of Native Americans' land right. He recollects the hostilities, means the differences, okay, that existed between the white and his tribal people, the red children. Okay, clear, children? He thinks that his old tribal people will never like to resume the old hostilities. He hopes that their good father in Washington would protect them. Clear? Actually, Chief Seattle is a very prominent figure among his tribal people. Clear? And he was the famous, prominent one, very popular in his tribe, among his tribe. Chief Seattle also sent his greetings of friendship and goodwill to the white chief, who has acknowledged his gesture of goodwill. Thus, there is a note of hope and optimism in this speech. So, children, let us read out the lesson and try to understand word to word what is about the speech which is given by Chief Seattle. Clear? Now, class 9, let's start our first chapter of Treasure Trove, that is Chief Seattle's speech. Though it is very complicated story and very difficult too, and but I hope that you will do your best to understand what Chief Seattle says. Okay, actually this story, or this is the speech which is delivered in 1854 by Chief Seattle, who belonged to Squamish tribe. Squamish tribe. See the spelling, okay? Now, let me start the reading of it side by side the explanation, and I hope you will pay attention to what I say. Yonder sky that has wept tears of compassion upon my people for centuries. Upon my people for centuries means upon whose people? Seattle's people. Okay, for centuries untold, and which to us appears changeless and eternal, may change. Today is fair, tomorrow it may be overcast with clouds. My words are like the stars that never change. Whatever Seattle says, the great chief at Washington can rely upon with as much certainty as he can upon the return of the sun or the seasons. The white chief says that big chief at Washington sends us greeting of friendship and goodwill. This is kind of him, for we know he has little need of our friendship in return. His people are many. They are like the grass that covers vast prairies. My people are few. They resemble the scattering trees of storm-swept plain. The great and, I presume, good white chief allow us enough to live comfortably. Now see, actually it is a speech delivered in 1854 by Chief Seattle, who belonged to Squamish tribe. He was prominent figure among his tribal people in his speech at Washington. He says, or he stressed about the path of accommodation to white settlers in US state of Washington. Okay, and his speech contained arguments in favor of ecological responsibility and respect for Native Americans' land rights. And in this he said that Chief Settle sends us greeting of friendship and goodwill, means he thanks the white chief for acknowledging his greetings of friendship with goodwill. He praises the kindness and greatness of the white chief. He says that though he wishes to buy their land, but still he is willing to allow them their liberty to live comfortably. He calls it a gesture of generosity. Clear? Now, this indeed appears just even generous, for the red man no longer has right that he need respect, and the offer may be wise also, as we are no longer in need of an extensive country. So Chief Seattle says, as I have told you, he was a prominent figure among his tribal people. He was talking, there are two classes, he has said, red men and the white people, red people and the white people. Clear? So, and he thinks about the red men that shows will swarm with the invisible dead of his tribe. Okay, now come to the next part. There was a time when our people covered the land as the waves of a wind-ruffled sea cover its shell paved floor, but that time long since passed away with the greatness of tribes that are now but a mournful memory. I will not dwell on nor mourn over our untimely decay, nor reproach my pale-faced brothers with hastening it, as we too may have been somewhat to blame. Now he recollects the hostilities. He is recalling the time when the white men begin to push their forefathers. Okay, the white people pushed their forefathers westward. There were hostilities between them. He wishes that those hostilities may never return, should be end. Okay, the young men would like to take revenge, the red people. Okay, they would like to take revenge, but the old tribal people, they are very wise and would never like to resume the hostilities towards the white. So Seattle hopes that their good father in Washington would protect the tribal, and his brave warriors would prove to be a great wall of strength against their ancient enemies, who frightened their women, their children, and their old men. So then in reality he would be their father and they would be his children. Now, there was a time when our people covered the land as the waves of a wind-ruffled sea, okay, and its paved floor. Okay, and so it was all done. Now come to the next part. Now see what he says. They are often cruel and relentless, and our old men and the old women are unable to restrain them. Thus it has ever been, thus it was when the white men begin to push our forefathers ever westward. But let us hope that hostilities between us may never return. As I told you, we would have everything to lose and nothing to gain. Revenge by young man is considered gain, and even at the cost of their own lives. But old men who stays, means I have told you that the older people, or you can say that they were wise. Okay, the people. You can say their elder people. Okay, they were very wise. They did not want them that the hostilities between two people would never start. Okay, our forefather in Washington, for I presume he is now our father as well as yours, since King George has moved his boundaries further north, our great and good Father, I say, send us word that if we do as he desire, he will protect us. Then he entertains a doubt. He has a doubt. He feels that God of white people is not their God. The god of white people loves his people and hates the tribal people. Tribal people are the red children. He has forsaken his red children. He has left his red children. He then refers to his own God, the Great Spirit, who also seems to have forsaken them, left them. The white man's God neither loves his people nor protects them. Okay, they seem to be orphans who can look nowhere for help. Thus he remarks that they are two distinct races with separate origins and separate destinies. There is a little in common between them. Now class 9, see the last para of page 42. That is what he says, that in this paragraph he says that the God of white people is not their God. He only loves his people. He makes the people pale face stronger and has forsaken his red children. He cannot love his red Indian children. So how can they be brothers? They seem to be orphaned. Thus he says that they are two distinct races with separate origins and separate destinies. There is very little in common between them. He further remarks that that the ashes of his ancestors are sacred. Okay, and their resting place is the land, whereas the white wander away from the graves of their ancestors. Clear, children? So the last one, see, he must be partial, for he came to his pale-faced children. We never saw him. Okay. Now class 9th, we will continue this story, or you can say speech of Seattle, in our next video. Please, though this lesson is really difficult to understand, and unless you revise what is written or what is said line to line, paragraph to paragraph, okay, you will not be able to understand. So please revise it carefully. Okay, pay attention to each and every word, and if you have any problem to understand any of the paragraph, any of the words, then please put up your queries to me. Clear?